I think this is the virtual session, sixth virtual session on design thinking, the human approach to innovation. So it's being like, this will be done by Denny. He's a director of architecture, strategy, and innovation. So without further ado, let me give the control to Denny. So Denny, thank you so much for joining, and you can start the session. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me. I think this is a great opportunity for everyone that's participating. There's a lot of good content. It's a good experience for everyone that's joining in the hackathon as well. Hopefully, I'm going to play off some of the other presentations as well. Design thinking is something that we thought would be a good fit for everyone that joins, not just a hackathon, but anyone that's going into various careers, where there's research, where there's development, where there's, I'm going to call it innovation. So I have a bar. Hopefully you can see the top of my screen. So we're going to talk a little bit about the concept of design thinking. So design thinking was put together because there wasn't a general process on how to come to a resolution. Now, what I mean by that is, I'm sure all of you, when you were in school, or even when your parents gave you something to do, they said, can you do something? Your immediate response is yes, based on existing knowledge that you have. You probably didn't weigh all the options, the good, the bad. You probably didn't think about risks or rewards. You probably didn't even consult anybody. And I'm sure for those of you that have done development or done research, you looked at a problem. Someone asked you a question. You immediately spit out a response, and you started to run with it. So the concept of design thinking puts together these 5 buckets. These buckets help you have a mindset on how to come up with creative and innovative solutions. And the most important part is they're user-friendly. Everything you do today, whether you're doing something for machine-based, human-based, mobile app, even a piece of software, there's someone that has to touch it, to maintain it, to run it. I remember years ago, I met Richard Branson, and Richard came up, and I asked him, I said, how do you come up with these amazing ideas and concepts? And he joked and he said, sometimes people don't know what they want until you tell them. That's a little bit of the opposite of design thinking, because he didn't take into account these 5 categories. We'll go into some depth on how to use empathy, how to define a solution, how to ideate, how to make these prototypes, and how to test them, because hopefully you're going to do this during the hackathon as well. So you're probably wondering, okay, so I've thought through a problem. Why does design thinking even matter? So design thinking is a way that you can focus on being creative to provide better products and services. Now, by better, it doesn't mean a flashy or shiny new toy, but something that's relevant. So when you're designing a solution, whether it's a mobile app or a song or a piece of art, you want it to capture people's attention and to also have some benefits. And that could be a product or a service, could be a workflow, could be anything that you're working on. To do that, and I'm sure most of you do this today, you've got to clarify what the original ask is. Now, I'm sure a number of you are in situations, whether at work or at school, and someone said to you, can you solve for X? Now, let's face it, if there's an algorithm involved or it's a math equation, yes, there's traditionally only one way to get to that endpoint. But if you're trying to solve and make a vehicle more efficient, or on the last presentation I watched, someone said, how do I clean up the oceans? There's a number of different ways you can do that. So you probably want to clarify what they really want. You probably want to brainstorm, to ideate. You probably want to test some ideas, and then you really want to put it into practice. Because let's face it, you can come up with a million ideas. If no one's going to use them, they're no benefit to you or anybody. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about what is design thinking. We're going to talk about why you would use it, where you would use it, the fun part of how you would use it, and the who. I come a lot from a black hat hacking background. And the who for me is important. It's a persona, the person who really cares. And we'll do a couple of practice rounds. We have a few people on the call, so we can actually make it pretty interactive. If there's other questions, feel free to raise your hands anytime, jump in. I saw this at a university a while ago. It was written on a whiteboard, and they had a whole bunch of students come in, and they said, I want you to think about how to solve for a problem. So, I remember going up with the prof and I wrote wicked problem on the board. I figured let's make everyone solve for it. Now, everyone came up with what they do to come and solve this problem. They want to co-create, they want to build something with somebody. They want to use their beliefs and their values, stuff they already know. They want to take a perspective and experience. Some people, they just want to just get to the end point and get it done and go on to the next problem. Some of them are just too difficult to solve. Like, you'll always hear, well, how do I solve world hunger? I mean, that was an extreme case, but you get the idea. Some things are just not quickly solvable. So, late 70s, David came up with a concept that says if you have empathy for the people that are asking you to solve something through a proper process, you're going to design something to make their lives better. So, David Kelly, like I said, he was the founder of this concept of design thinking. Excuse me for one quick second. Hopefully, I muted out successfully. Basically, there was a series of things he put in place, and he said these are the methodologies and the concepts for design thinking. He was a Stanford University prof. Stanford thought, over a number of decades, what, this is a really cool way and a methodology for thinking and how to do things. It pretty much became the de facto standard for Stanford, where they even made a separate institution within Stanford called the D School. And this school was how to think and how to use methodology to solve problems. 5 stages of thinking, super cool. And now it's the great thing about it, it's used in every industry, not just in education, in art. You're designing marketing literature, you're doing ads and profiles. In science, you're creating the next latest medicine or drug. You're in design or architecture, whether it's me doing software at work or the next electric vehicle, fashion sense, electronics. Design thinking is a part of everything now. And I'll give you some real world examples of people I reached out to. Those of you that are on the call, I'm sure you've been inundated with Zoom over the years. In Zoom, there's an option at the bottom that you can click a reaction. You can raise your hand if you want to ask a question, or you can just jump in anytime. So, but I will pause a couple of times. The idea of design thinking has 3 basic buckets. So there's empathy and curiosity, which is probably the easiest. Now, let's face it, to feel empathy, if you were to ask me to design something or to figure out something, like the questions you're going to have during the hackathon, you need some insight. You want to know why they're asking it. Is it to make money, save money, make people's lives easier? You want to get some involvement with the people asking. You want some understanding. Um, as I learned with a very good friend of mine, a number of words can be interpreted different ways. You want to make sure that you are fully understanding the problem. You're not understanding what they want, you want to understand the problem. The last one, and I won't lie, it's hard, it happens to everybody, active listening. Active listening is hard because as a human reaction, we all want to immediately solve a problem. Someone says something, you say, oh, by the way, I can do this, or I can help you with that. You give it a minute, ask some questions, make sure you have all the answers. So empathy is an important part of design thinking. The ambiguity part is getting people to think differently. Everyone in school now is taught how to write code, develop a solution, get to an endpoint. Here's an issue, solve it, get to something, hand it in, get the best marks possible. In my little drawing here, I was kind of scribbling, which seemed like a good thing, so I just sort of cut it out and put it in. It made sense. People do things because they've always done things. That's the status quo. There are problems, though, that will jump in along the way. Issues. So you may have a problem saying, I want my car to heat up faster in the winter. So there are a number of problems. It could be weather dependent, could be wind, could be parking, could be the direction I'm facing. So there's problems we have to take into effect. My little loops are the ambiguous part. You're going to design something over the course of your life, and it could be anything. You could be barbecuing for a family member and then realize, you know what? I have a vegetarian amidst my group. Okay, they threw me for a loop. Now I've got to jump. So there's a lot of those loops that you have to get to. The end result of what you're building, it's different for the hackathon. You're designing a specific solution. In the real world, you're going to come into solutions where there may be more than one right answer, and that's the hard part. I work for a large Canadian institution, and I won't lie, we have minimum two of everything. And the reason for that is because not everything is a perfect fit. So ambiguity, don't get disappointed if you put your heart and soul into something and you think, or the people reviewing it look at it and go, wow, you were a little off base. So that's one of the things to think about. The last one, we've all done this. And hopefully any of you that have played sports, you're part of teams or initiatives, church groups, youth groups, whatnot. Iteration is important. It's not a one and done. I mean, there was a phrase that we used to use related to washing your hair. It's rinse and repeat. Try it, do it again. So if we go through the left circle there, you have an idea, you've done the analysis, you've talked to your constituents, the people that asked you to work on something, you've done the discovery, let's go build something. So now you're in the second set of boxes here where you're building. You're going to do some testing. You're going to reach out and make sure you're on the mark. But you know what? They may think, well, can you make it blue? Can you make it louder? Whatever it happens to be. So you're going to go through this loop a couple of times. You may get to a point where that person goes, yeah, I don't want that at all. I want to completely go a different place. You're going to pivot, go right back to the beginning and start again. Don't let it scare you. So granted, your hackathon, you have a limited amount of time. So this process is going to be a little bit shorter, but you still need to do it. Once you're ready to run, scaling is your last part, and we'll talk about that. So if any of you have done any sort of building or software development or even written a paper, you've published a document, you've handed in an assignment, I'm sure most of you have probably gone through the loop a couple of times. Do these things kind of make sense? I can't see any of you, so I'm going to assume there's some nodding in the background. I'm looking to the right because I have a secondary monitor. Thanks, Daniel. So let's talk about a structured yet flexible way of doing this. So you've got to empathize. When you work on a solution and someone asks you to do something, you want to figure out why they want it. And it's funny, when I was in my black hat days, what I always used to say to someone is, what keeps you up at night? Why is this a pain for you? If you're solving a problem, that's genuinely a problem. I mean, VJ did a great job when he talked to the young lady who said, I want to clean up the ocean. Because what are the benefits of it? And immediately, I mean, we all know that there are benefits, but you can't solve them all. So you want to focus on the key things and maybe quick wins, maybe things that are financially viable, but you want to empathize with the person that's asking you. Then you want to define a solution. The reason for multiple rings is, yeah, you want to hit the target, but there's going to be multiple levels of results. There may be quick wins, there may be financial wins, there may be stages of things that you'll complete. Defining what you're going to do is just as important as getting the information. For those of you that have ever worked with consultants, there's things that will always be out of scope, but at least you know about them. Ideation. Call it what you will, call it brainstorming, call it whiteboarding, cloud thinking. There's a number of different terms that are used industry-wide. It's funny, when I was doodling this the first time, I did it on a whiteboard for internal people. There's a little bulb and a big bulb. There's no bad idea. They're all ideas. The thing you have to take a look at is, if you're part of a team, take a look at all the ideas. Maybe some of them overlap. We're going to try it when we do our exercises. So, if I'm running the project, selfishly, sometimes I think I'm the big bulb because I have the best idea. Well, I may not. The way design thinking works is, especially if you're part of a team, you have to collaborate. Different people have different perspectives. Try to consume. Prototype. This is actually fun. Um, I'm a big fan of pen and paper, and for a couple of reasons. Prototyping, I mean, for your end result for the hackathon is clearly different, but industry wide, sometimes a prototype is a whiteboard or a story. Sometimes a process flow where you've drawn diagrams and you have people follow the bouncing ball. Prototyping could be a presentation, could be done through Canva or Mural or any of those tools where you can show people like a mock-up of what something would look like. For any of you that are automotive junkies and have ever been to a car show or one of those types of events, they have show vehicles on display that look like cars that have no interior, no running parts, no motor, but they sure look like a car, just to give people the idea of what a prototype could look like. The great thing is, and for those of you that are developers on the call, there are tools that will actually take code and create content. So if you're interested in some of those, I can show you. You can write something in Python or in Java, and it will look at your code and create a graphical representation of what you're doing. And better yet, I'm graphically inclined, so I might draw the pretty pictures, and it will generate Python code. So prototyping, super cool way to get the idea out. And then test it. If you can hit the mark first off, call me up because I want to invest in you. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, if you're going to design something, put it to test. See if you got the right idea. Go back to the person that you empathize with and see if you hit the mark. I reached out, and this was actually convenient. So I was kidding with a few of the members who are running the hackathon that in my prior days to joining the bank, I was in a role where I got to work with organizations like NASA. I reached out to my buddies in Houston and I said, tell me what you have that still uses design thinking. So they have an engineering handbook for systems design. And they sent me this screenshot. The cool thing about it is this is something that they actually publish, and I can send you copies of it and whatnot. Not copies of the entire guide, but I can send you sections where they talk about how they figure out a solution to a problem. And this happens to be from the systems design group. So what they did is the 5 things we talked about. Basically, they went to a group of people and they said, okay, your mission, this is the guys in charge. What do you want to solve? They went to the governance teams and they wanted to know, what are the objectives? What are the constraints? Operationally, the people that have to turn the wrenches and make things be successful. And then mission success. How do you claim success? So you have to figure out all those details, and they make this a key priority. They've got to define requirements. You'll hear sometimes functional and non-functional requirements. They use functional and logical. Their baseline requirements, like bare minimum stuff, high-level requirements. So they define the things they want to solve. There's more steps, clearly, where they define things like priority and level, but they're still defining. Then all their think tanks get together because each one of those requirements may not be solved by just one team. They may have multiple groups. And when they look through all the requirements, each bullet point might be a separate team or groups of teams, which is kind of cool, actually. Then they've got a prototype. I mean, let's face it, if you're launching something or playing with something at the magnitude they are, in a number of instances, I'm not just thinking space travel, but their involvement, you're spending a ton of money. Putting it bluntly, you want to make sure the prototypes work. And they test it. And testing it, not just the prototype is successful, but does it work for the people involved? Is it safe? Is it reliable? Is it repeatable? And then that becomes their new baseline, their standard. And then they work from there. So it was interesting when I reached out. They said, oh, Denny, absolutely. We totally do. We still do design thinking. And I work with them. Last time was probably about 8 years ago. But we still keep in touch. So it was totally worth it. You're probably wondering other examples. What about medical? So think big pharma, the guys coming out with the latest drugs and whatever it is, a vaccine, an injection, whatever it happens to be. Same type of flows. So this is from a large pharmaceutical company based in the US where they do drug research. Sometimes they research for a problem. Sometimes they research because they have access to things and they know it'll make things better. Um, but they have to see, is it solving a problem? Is it a safety researcher? Are they just doing research? But they've got to do that research, asking the questions, defining a problem, or defining, sorry, their target solution is going to, in this case, it happens to be a new drug. So they know they have to do the chemistry research, figure out how to assemble the bits and pieces, figure out safety requirements, how they're going to get it to the markers, how they're going to get it to delivery systems. They're going to have to work together with multiple groups doing clinical trials, doing studies, doing researches, send it to universities for their grants, their grant students to actually go do some additional research in different phases, non-clinical research. The last section is interesting. When they told me they broke it apart, they chopped it up in two sections. In big pharma for new drugs, their prototype phase happens once they get approval. So yes, the drug's been approved. We're allowed to make vaccine X. I'm not going to pick on anything specifically because that'll surely get me in trouble. But then they start doing clinical studies. They want to make sure that there are results that they can publish. Then they start testing them. And don't think for a second that I'm promoting that they're saying they're testing them on humans or animals or people. They have their methodologies in place, but then they have a database of all the things that they've done. So that becomes their new baseline, similar to what NASA does. Uh, as a thought, so we talked about aerospace, talked about pharmaceutical. Has anyone ever come across design thinking in any other industry? If not, that's okay too. I'm just curious. I have a bar on the top of my screen. I don't know if you guys can see the top of my screen. Oh, there we go. Let's try that. That makes it better. One of the things that I like to do is an empathy map. So I go back to that first stage to figure out the problem that you're trying to solve. Hopefully all of you can see my screen. It looks like it's a big blue background with a number of stars on it. An empathy map lets you put things into perspective about your problem and your target. I like to throw a picture in the center of mine. It's not always easy to do. But in this case here, I've got a student. It looks pretty frazzled. I'm saying pretty upset, and she's got something on her mind. So clearly, I'm being asked to do something to help her come up with a solution. Now, that solution, I have to take into account how she feels, what she's thinking. So by how she feels is, oh my, why am I taking so long to do this? Do I need to ask for help? What does she say? Oh, and she calls her mom and she's so frustrated because she can't make something happen. She relies on a friend who is doing really well and maybe asks for help. What does she do? Cuts out extracurricular activities, does some more research, does some more studying. What does she think? This is the hardest part. Oh, am I smart enough for this? Am I doing the right things for me? Because in the end, there's a gain and there's a pain. My goal is always to make sure that people feel the gain. If I do something for someone, I want them to feel positive about it. That's where design thinking kicks in. I want them to get something out of it. There might be some pain. They may have to work a little harder or put in some extra hours, but in the end, they're going to get better marks, better grades, or whatever the case is. And if I can send out templates if anybody wants them, feel free to reach out or do a quick Google search and say empathy map. You'll find all kinds of different patterns online. this is something, and I'll explain why there's some things randomly written in black as well. There are pitfalls to design thinking. And I'm sure, I mean, there was a phrase that we used all through school called the "Oh yeah, yeah" club. I'm sure a number of you have studied for exams and you've looked at something and went, "Oh yeah, yeah, I know that." So that's a pitfall. And those things happen in design thinking as well. So a lack of empathy. Maybe I don't get it. Like, why are you complaining about this problem and it doesn't seem to affect anybody else? Maybe it's I didn't define it right, so there's poor definition. Maybe there's resource constraints. Oh, you've only given me 4 days to do this. Um, maybe there's a lack of collaboration. So if it's a project that impacts multiple people, which truthfully in the industries, if you do something, you don't want to do a one and done. You want something that's a reusable, repeatable process. So you want to make sure you get buy-in from multiple stakeholders. And when I asked the group, I said, okay, so for those of you that have done design thinking, whether it was my university students downtown Toronto or whether it was full-time employees, they blurted out some other things that I give them credit for. So I throw them on the slides every time somebody comes up with one. So right away, I had a marketing person come up and say, it's only for developers. I don't care. Okay, well, yes, developers and engineers traditionally use design thinking processes. Processes. The There are others. In marketing, you have to make sure you get and target the right audience. I'm sure a number of times you watched a TV commercial or listen to an ad on the radio or on Spotify and you think, what the heck was that for? And they didn't grab you. So they clearly didn't do the right market research. One of them said on the right side, we're on a deadline. We don't have time to do all these things. Well, true. If you're on a deadline and you were the guy designing my brand new car and you thought maybe I could skimp out on the brakes, I'd rather you didn't. My favorite one was the very last one with a consulting firm when I did this. They said, the customer's already paid us, so we can skip a few steps. Okay, no, that's just cutting corners. But it was an interesting statement because it happens, right? So you've got 5 stages. You look at it and go, we already got their money. Maybe we'll just won't ask as many questions. So you kind of understand now that there's the 5 stages of design thinking. Any other thoughts? Is there anything else that maybe comes to mind for any of you that have practiced this and says, this could be an issue for me? And if not, that's okay too.
So just a quick question, Denny, just sorry to interrupt. So with the AI and all these things coming up, so how this design thinking is being adapted? So nowadays we are just directly going into solution, right? Like we are skipping many steps, right? So just curious to learn about that too, but you can cover it later on if you want. Yeah.
No, and you know what? I was kind of hoping someone would bring up AI. That's a key point. With AI now, and it's funny if any of you are Copilot users or Gemini users or any of the newer platforms. Even when you do a search, I saw on Copilot today, when you do a search, it gives you a quick answer, it gives you a deep research answer, or you can actually enable deep research that can take 20, 30 minutes to come back with results. Same steps apply. You just kind of have to remember to do them and not allow AI to take over for you. But you know what? We're going to go through those. I'm glad you brought that up. We'll put some of those in as we talk about them.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for saying that. Tools are funny. So coming from a software background and a black hat background, when I think tool, I think software, or I'm also mechanical. So I think something I physically touch. There's tools like MindMaster and Canva, Mural, but a tool could be something as simple as a whiteboard. And if any of you have been in classrooms, or I can tell you both on my living room window and my fridge, I've had more whiteboard marker discussions than you can possibly imagine, where friends or family will come over, we'll grab the whiteboards and we'll talk about something and we'll sketch it because it's a way to discuss. It's a tool. Persona maps, I'll show you an example of one of those. and that's how to map your stakeholders. So tools can be ways that you can interact, or they can be physical things. And if you're looking for something specific for any one of those 5 areas, ping me, or if you see me on the weekend, let me know, and I can send some out to you. My favorite part is the techniques. So brainstorming, and this is where it's fun to use AI. So if any of you used AI and said, can you please do something for me to solve, I don't know, build me a presentation on design thinking, it will come up and say, here's the things you should talk about, and here's your steps. Reverse brainstorming is taking the steps and then breaking them down to explain them. Similarly to, you want to build an app that's going to help someone solve a solution. What happens if you had an app already and the app did 3 things and now you wanted to change it? So reverse brainstorming is a fun way to look at things, and AI is a perfect way to change your mindset. Assumption testing, another great use case for AI, especially Gen AI, because now it's the if I do this, what will happen scenario. And this is where deep research comes in, and you can pull out all kinds of fun ideas, because it will look at things you probably haven't even thought of, but have been parts of similar trains of thought. A couple that I like to focus on are the last 3 bullets on the right side. Ask to feel the pain. And for any of you that are ever going to go into a sales role, you're going to be a developer, you're looking at research, medical professions, you name it. I can think of examples, many examples. If you're there to solve a problem, sometimes it's hard to get it unless you've been in their shoes. And the best example I had was we worked on a solution for a line of business, and they wanted us to automate a customer satisfaction form. You wouldn't think that was rocket science, because all you do is you throw up a web page and you make people fill in content. There was a young lady that I spoke to, and she did data entry. And she told me that she had tons and tons of forms that were given to her that she had to manually input. Okay, that sounds like a pain. And then I thought about it. The customer has to fill those forms in too. Well, that's a pain. And then I thought, well, someone has to send all those customers all those forms, and another person has to collect them all to give them to that young lady that has to manually input them. Those are all pain points. If someone shows you the process end to end, it's so much easier to do the empathy mapping. And that's where the last bullet point comes in. Everyone's a stakeholder. So yes, you solve for a problem, but who's it for? Is it just for the one person, or does it impact the person implementing it? I mean, you guys in your careers may design the coolest app possible. Who's going to maintain it? Who's going to maintain the device that it runs on? Who's going to update it? Does it work in different languages? Does it work at different levels on the device or different operating systems? Lots of stakeholders. So techniques to think about. These are probably there's tons of them published, especially if you download the Stanford paper on design thinking, which is some good thick light reading. But these are the most common ones on paper. And I throw this out because I had some examples from things we did. I just did some screenshots. Tell me about your experience. So this is the empathy part. What do you want to achieve? Do you like what we did? Was it hard to do? How many of you have ever done one of these? Anybody? Or does it look familiar? I'm kind of hoping it jumps out. I don't see any hands. So the way it kind of works is when you work on a project, you design, I'm going to do something that might be a high level of effort. It's going to take me a long time, but is it going to give me a high value return, or is it a low impact on my consumer? Ideal use case, you have low effort, high impact. In the real world, we know that that's not possible. You kind of want to be sort of in the middle where you exert a little bit of effort, but you have some decent impact. But it's a good way to know where to focus your problems and where to focus your efforts. The guy with the checkbook was a thought that I had. Who's paying you? The more money you make, sometimes it's the quicker you get to ideation phases. But you do need to map out those personas, not just the guy with the checkbook. but are you working with volunteers who may or may not be as vested in the problem? Are you working with Peter, the average user? Do you have staff? Do you have clients? Do you have consumers? Um, so do some mapping. And again, similar to the impact chart, you want to impact as many people as you can. When you do that Venn diagram and the circles overlap, you want to make sure you cover as many people as you can. Process flows and journeys. In banking, we call them journeys, how we get to end solutions. Process flows are more commonly used. And then satisfaction. Do you like what we did? Do you not like? Okay. There's a few of you on the call. What I'm going to do is, rather than going through the first one, because we don't have a whole lot of time left, I'm going to show you what it looks like with content. So in an empathy mapping session, what we want to do, we talked a little bit about it. Sorry, hopefully that muted out. I did some mapping. So basically I took a concept of a young lady that's having a tough time doing online learning. So I want you to think about this for any of you, especially any of you that had to deal with this through COVID. Online learning, how do you feel? Are you overwhelmed? You're not sure who to trust to get help? Are you anxious about it and it's driving you crazy? What are you thinking? Like, why is this so hard for me? You know what? Maybe this isn't the best thing that I should be doing. Maybe I should be doing something else. When you reach out for help, what do you think? What do you think is the best thing for me to do for online learning? What about for what do I do? So these are ideas that when I sat down with a series of students and posed this to them, I said, let's talk about how to map to make your online learning process easier. And they came up with every one of these options. My favorite was when they said, we talked about pain, right? Fear of failure. What if I do all this work and I still suck at it? Um, it's a highly competitive field that you're all going into. So there is going to be some challenges there. But if you do it right, you're going to sleep better. You might have more free time. You might get a better job. Does the mapping make sense as far as empathy mapping? Now, here's one. If we were to design a solution, we do have a little bit of time. I don't know if you guys want to try this. So if we were to improve mental health in a campus. Now, if you notice, there's no boxes here. There's no see, do, feel, say, pain, gain. The reason for this, we'll go through the rest of the presentation. We'll come back and try it. We can do some mapping. The idea when you do this, when you work on it, you put all your ideas on the board and then you drag them around and you figure out which ones are in the most buckets so you know where to focus. So to give you some ideas, these are your 5 categories to take a look at. Understanding what your requirement is, collaborating and defining what the solution is. The prototyping is always, in my opinion, it's probably the most fun anyways. You get to experiment. And, we've done some great experiments, at the bank where I work. Similarly in the field from my former job, being a hacker. You get to be creative. But from a consumer point of view, I would focus on the last one. You want a user-centric focus because those services and apps and tools that you're designing impact somebody somewhere. Someone's got to install it, run it, maintain it, manage it, or use it. Your 5 categories as a follow-up, because if depending if I'm allowed to, I'm willing to send out the presentation so you have this as a reference. I can include other links afterwards. And that's what we did. We talked about what design thinking is and the 5 areas. We talked about why you would want to use it. And honestly, it's to get buy-in from individuals, better involvement. Where to use it? Pretty much everywhere. I mean, it could be design thinking I used when I designed my kitchen. I wanted functionality. I could clearly have went into a Home Depot or a Rona or a Lowe's and said, I want to buy that kitchen and install it. Is it the right one for what I want? Probably wouldn't have been. So I completely picked the cabinets and built my own. Where to use it? We definitely talked about how to use it and all the little patterns. Most importantly, when you work on any app and during the hackathon, think about who cares. So you'll each have a question to work on, um, knowing that target end goal and practice. It's not going to be a one and done. Those of us that are in certain fields have been doing this for a long time. I highly recommend it. You might get really good at some stages. You may not be as good as others. We didn't have any parking lot items because you guys didn't ask a lot of questions, but if there's follow-up items, if you need research material or content from me, I'm happy to include links that I can send you.
I think, Denny, there are two questions in the chat box. If you can,
Didn't even
can
see
you
them.
see the chat box?
I see them now. Completely my mistake. So the question reads, in time constraints events like hackathons, what's your recommended approach to quickly generate accurate empathy maps without overgeneralizing? That's an interesting one. So in hackathons, and we run them at the bank as well, you're given a problem and a solution, or you're giving a problem that you have to come up with a solution for. Sometimes you have teams that you can interact with to get more general knowledge. Um, what's the problem based from? Who drove the problem? Is it just a question that you want someone that you're allowed to do some free thinking? If you have the ability to ask, drill that out up front. Reach out to whoever you can. In some hackathons, I do one for the Black Hat conference every year. There is no one to ask. You have to do that on your own. So the empathy mapping is done for yourself. So think about yourself, and if you're given a question, I need to protect my mobile device. I'm picking an example we did from last year's Black Hat. What type of device is it? Is a mobile device a tablet or a phone? And each one of these things, you're starting to break down the requirements. How does it impact me? Do I use certain security measures? Is it used by an experienced user? Experience meaning your university grad, or is it being used by my 75-year-old mother who is completely technically inept? So you're right. Overgeneralizing happens quite a bit in time limited or time constraint events. If you can ask, please do. If not, if you're able to work with a team, yes, bounce ideas off each other. If not, it may be only your personal experience. It's a good question.
Yeah, there's one more question from Daniel. Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel, you're right. You don't have access to those stakeholders. You're limited through research and imagination. Um, Industries, finding examples from people. So if you get a question, um, and I think VJ did a good job when he did his presentation as well, when he asked for an issue to solve, and it was about cleaning the oceans. Okay, well, clearly this isn't the first group that's done it. There have been a number of organizations, a number of enterprises, and you're right, those stakeholders were purely done through research. If my biggest advice is don't just look at successes, look at failures. You learn a lot from failure. You either learn how to make it better or you learn not to do that. So if you can, that's one way. And you know what? Imagination, I love that you put that in there. Key. And I'll give you one quick one because I know we're short on time. We designed a solution. Some of you have seen those like AR glasses, like the Ray-Bans and stuff. We designed a solution where I used artificial intelligence on the glasses, and my team built them so that if you spoke to me in Mandarin or in Tamil, and I only spoke English, the glasses would auto-translate and show me the text in English. The cool thing about that is if I spoke in English on the mobile app, it would translate it back to Tamil or Mandarin for you so we could communicate. Everyone thought it was super cool. It turned out to be a limited use case because if you were in a branch where people spoke Mandarin or Tamil, you didn't need the glasses anyways. Where they were a hit was for people that had hearing impairments. So if you're ever in a large auditorium or a concert, try talking to the person next to you and figure out how hard it is. What the glasses did really well is they translated real time and they wrote the text on the screen. So now they're a perfect fit for listening to conversations. So yeah, we used our imagination to do something really cool, but it turned out it was a better fit for something else. Joan, that's a really good question you have too. What ways can design thinking help bridge the gap between raw NASA data sets and user-friendly applications or visualizations? I'm lucky enough to work with a lot of data scientists. And I will be honest that sometimes we don't communicate on the same page because I'm a visual person. That raw data set is valuable, super valuable information. User-friendly applications may be, and it depends on the audience, right? So I can tell you when I create reports for executives, an executive doesn't always care about all the minutia for fine details. They want to know, are they in the red or are they in the green? Or worse, are they in the green turning yellow, meaning something may go really bad later? So sometimes all of the detail isn't as relevant for the end results, but the raw data sets and the information should be available should you need it. User-friendly applications, easy to click through. I mean, you have a limited amount of time, so you can't focus on localization for languages. Think about devices. What might you look at it on? Everybody here uses their mobile phone for, I'm sure, pretty much everything, or you have tablets or laptops. So think about how you're going to display that content. Think about color schemes. And if you notice, my question mark is in red. When you do presentations and when you do displays, colors mean a lot. Red traditionally negative, green traditionally positive, blue meaning trending positive. Think about how you make things appealing to your consumer. What I'll do, Joan, is I'll put together some content I do for a presentation class, and I'll include that as well. Because I think that's very relevant. That's a good one. Thanks, guys. Those are good questions. And if we have time afterwards or another day, we can always try the one where we're doing our design thinking and see if we can make things better for campus life. But the presentation I can make available if anybody wants it. I don't see any other hands up.
Yeah, I think it's a really good session, Denny. Like it's a we had 5 sessions so far, and this is the last one. So this is a different one. Like all of them we had was like mostly on programming using data sets and all. So now this is like more on design thinking level, like concept level. So hopefully this will be somewhat useful for our participants, right, on the hackathon, right? They can apply it, and I think everyone will get to see Danny on Saturday and Sunday as well. He will be doing the judging as well, so hopefully he will be wearing the design thinking hat. So yeah, we get to see, we can ask questions as well. So thank you so much, Danny, and thank you everyone for joining. Yeah, I will share
Yep.
the recording later on.
Perfect. Thank you very much. This was great, and I look forward to seeing you guys all on the weekend.
Yeah, see you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.